Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Thank you all for taking the time to attend this event. Can you all hear me okay? Yes. Before making the introductions, I'll make a few comments. We'll have a short video, followed by the talk by our two guest speakers. Then there will be a brief intermission for food and fellowship. And then there will be a presentation on American Muslims. And then there will be time for questions and comments. I ask that you write down your comments or questions in one of the notepads or index cards that are around. And before I finish, I'll introduce the persons who will come and pick them up. We'll pick up the questions at the beginning of the intermission, so you got plenty of time to think about what questions you'd like to ask. This event is about community, not theology. It is about American Muslims. It is not about the religion of Islam. If you would like to learn about Islam, please do invite us to your organizations and churches. We have presentations, and we like to give this to you. We wait to be invited. But this event is about community. And this event is also not to rehash the episode coming out of the Facebook posting. My name is Zach Mohyuddin. I have lived in Tutalahoma, here in Coffee County, for the past 24 years. I'm a registered professional engineer. I'm originally from Bangladesh, grew up in Pakistan, and moved with my parents to Nashville in 1975. I've been an American citizen, and proudly so, since 1981. That's 32 years ago. Let me make 4 brief points as we start the program. Gathering like this is a reminder that of a simple fact of life: nothing stays the same. Change is always happening. The American Muslims are part of the changing demographics of this country. The challenge for our political, economic, civic, spiritual, business leaders is how to effectively manage the change to make us. The strength of the United States historically has come from taking on changes and not be stuck in the present, or worse, stuck in the past.
I love the past.
In this context, I am reminded of a quote that I learned many years ago. I think it's very relevant all times. The quote is from the 1890s, that is going down some past. The quote was from the head of the United States Patent Office. He said, "Everything that has been invented, can be invented, has been invented. Everything that can be invented, has been invented." And he went on to propose to close the patent office. Imagine what America would look like today if the collective wisdom set in that there is nothing new to discover and nothing unfamiliar to explore. So I invite you this evening to learn about American Muslims based upon objective information and not based upon fear of the unfamiliar. Point number two I'd like to make is our public officials must vigorously defend everyone's constitutional rights. Everyone's constitutional rights, whether they arise from the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, or any of the others. Our collective freedom, yours and mine, depends on our ability to pursue all the rights that are given to us under the Bill of Rights. And at one point or another, we all need one of those rights that are given under the Bill of Rights. Point number 3, it must be unacceptable and unfashionable to lump all American Muslims into a one-dimensional, exaggerated stereotype, one that is based on the distorted and self-reinforcing assumptions of who we are.
And that's your assumption that people feel that way.
You are entitled, all of us, we all are entitled to our opinions, but I do ask that you look at changing your assumptions. And also consider that some of the sources of information have a financial and vested interest in putting the Americans in the worst light possible. There's a lot of books and DVDs to be sold. By self-reinforcing assumption, this is what I mean, a narrative that goes like this. Well, all American Muslims cannot possibly be loyal to the country or the Constitution because their faith requires otherwise. And and what happens is when Muslims gain positions of authority and responsibility, it then is looked upon as additional evidence that yes, Muslims are subverting the government, or that they're not true Muslims. It is the catch-22. I hope during this discussion we get to look at some of the examples. Number 4, no human being aspires to merely be tolerated. The American Muslims are no different. We are standing for our rights, grounded on the firm conviction about our loyalty to this country and our goodwill towards this country. I ask that you view us for who we are, not who that somebody has decided we are supposed to be based on out of context, literal reading of religious text. In turn, I ask the American Muslim leadership to specially engage the youth to prevent radicalization. Make it also unacceptable and unfashionable to build up a narrative that only the Muslims have been singled out. Teach them history, how many other ethnic and religious groups have over time in our history been looked upon with suspicion. The Mormons, the Catholics, the Jews, the Japanese Americans, and yes, even the Irish at one point or another. And the Muslim leadership should also push back on the narrative which can build up resentment, that colonial injustices happen only in Muslim lands. Teach them that they happen in other lands also, like colonial America and China. The American leadership, the Muslim leadership should also provide, in my opinion, rigorous cultural competency training to recent immigrants so that they recognize how cultural practices they brought from their homelands can easily be misappropriated or misinterpreted and lead to distortions. I end with a note of optimism about the future of American Muslims in this country. Looking forward, here it is June 2013 on forwards. I'm optimistic. And how could I not be? Listen to this. A Mormon just ran for the presidency. Today, all 9 justices of the United States Supreme Court are either Catholics or Jewish.
Yay!
Today, anybody with any background can join the military. Nobody is barred from the military because of who they are. And number 4, less than 70 years after the internment of Japanese Americans, some of the largest employers in this area are from Japan. America is a work in progress. What I would like to do is introduce some of our local leaders, and then also mention we have the Honorable David Pennington, Mayor of Coffee County. I didn't see Mayor Glenn Curley. Yeah, he from Taloma. He was going to come, didn't make it, and I didn't see Mayor Lonnie Norman from Manchester. Commissioner Barry West was here. All the commissioners and elected officials, local officials, please stand up to be recognized. Thank you. Wanted to know, we had also invited Representative Judd Medini and State Senator Janice Bowling, both are out of town, and had also extended an invitation to Congressman Diane Black. And before I finish, I would like to say that as you write down your questions, the persons who would pick up your questions at the beginning of the intermission, would you please stand up so you know who to give them to? So I would now hand this over to Ms. Zulfa Suara. She's the head of the American Muslim Advisory Council. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Zulfa Suara. I am the chair of the American Muslim Advisory Council. I am also a CPA by profession. In addition to working with the Muslim community, I also work for different organizations in my community. I served as the state president of the Business and Professional Women of Tennessee for 2 years. I was the only one in the state, the 90-year history of that organization, to have to serve like that. BPW is an organization that advocates for the rights of women, especially working women in the United States. I also served as the president, actually founded that organization in my county, the Junior Achievement of America. This is an organization that goes into school and teach children how to be conservative. About 2 weeks ago, we took about 100 students, 5th graders, to a field trip to Beastown, J.A. Beastown, where they actually run a city for a day and they learn what American economics and politics is about. I'm also married and I have my own practice. I've been running my business, a CPA practice, for about 10 years now. My task tonight is to tell you about AMAC, the American Muslim Advisory Council, and to recognize some of the people that we have here with us. AMAC is a statewide organization. We have members from East to West Tennessee. The mission of AMAC is to serve as a bridge between the Tennessee Muslim community and the community at large, especially the law enforcement agency and government and private agencies. We believe that through education, communication, and empowerment is the way to go forward. We believe that there's work to be done on both sides. And we believe that by doing that, like this workshop or this meeting that we have tonight, a dialogue, there's a way to have a discourse in a public setting. We have differences, but there's a civil way to go about it. We want you to listen to us, and we want to listen to you. We will take up all the questions, and we will do our best to answer all your questions. It's not about making up stories. There's been people describing us, telling people who we are. We are here to talk to you, who we are, face to face, so you can put a face to the people that you have been describing. We believe that working together will also foster mutual trust. And we also believe that that is what is needed to protect every American against terrorism, criminal acts, or any injustice. We have, and you can go to our website, along with so many other Muslim organizations, condemn terrorism. Yes, we have. And there's a lot of things that you will see in our presentation that shows that way back as 1999. Some of it is not picked up, some of you may not know about it. We are Americans and we are Muslims. And the fact that somebody says American hates Muslim does not make it true. I am an American and I'm a Muslim and I love this country, and that's the fact. We have some organizations here with us today. If you are here, I will not be able to recognize everyone in person, but I want to acknowledge all the work that most of you are doing in the community. We have members of the Tennessee Immigrants and Refugee Rights Coalition with us. The American Center for Outreach. Our Muslim Neighbor Project. And I want to recognize the Tennessee Good Forum for joining us this evening as well. At this point, I will ask the AMAC board members that are present here to please stand. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. Though we are of many faiths and many cultures, we are one. We are one. And I believe that as Americans, we all must continue to work together in order to enhance the security of our nations. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next part is, before we start the program, I want to also thank very much, I forgot, the local Talahoma, Monteagle, the immediate area, as well as the other interfaith groups. They have been instrumental in giving us the help. I appreciate all the help from all the interfaith groups. Thank you. We will now start. The web video is called Welcome to Shelbyville. It's actually a 1-hour program, but this is a 15-minute condensed version. And please watch it.
Good evening. It's an honor for me to be here and speak with you, members of the American family, and to reflect on the current struggle for civil rights in the post-9/11 era. Thank you for your invitation to speak. The American Muslim Council continues to be a partner with us on addressing the challenges we all face in keeping our country safe and protecting our civil rights and civil liberties.
Okay, we are all very proud of being law-abiding citizens. Let's also be rule-abiding citizens.
I got a baby for you.
We've got a constitution, and he's violating it.
I want to present a PowerPoint with some information. The hate crimes, as they are defined by federal law, that obviously is a summary. Following is a slide showing the FBI documented hate crimes, reported hate crimes motivated by racial bias, sexual orientation bias, religious bias, ethnic and national origin.
Is it a hate crime to blow us up? Yeah.
That is a segment of the United States Code, 18 United States Code, Section 241. Conspiring to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate another person in the exercise and enjoyment of their constitutional rights.
That's what's happening here.
Some of these, folks, I'm not going to fight this. I simply ask for the courtesy to listen to my remarks.
Ernie! Where's our rights? Let's indoctrinate people. Come on. Let's let them talk. Quiet.
Following are some federally protected activities, that is, activities that you are entitled under our statutes and Constitution. There is a segment of the United States Code dealing with the destruction to religious property.
Like taking our Ten Commandments out the door?
Following is 18 U.S.C. 249, the Bird Shepherd Hate Crimes Act, and you can see what constitutes a violation of that act. And the penalties associated. Notice that you do not have to complete the act under federal law, because under federal law, attempts to do that are punishable by the same amount of time as completing the act itself. Furthermore, human trafficking statutes, and again, this is a summary of the federal law, that is covered by various civil rights statutes. Forced labor, another form of human trafficking. Sex trafficking of children.
How about the trafficking in Virginia? Are we doing anything
Interference
about
with
it?
access to the reproductive health clinic. Interference with the right to vote. And other rights that we have that are listed.
I can't hear the man.
There is also civil enforcement of civil rights. The educational opportunities. Everyone is entitled to those under the Constitution and the federal statutes. The Equal Employment Opportunity Act that entitles you to those equal rights for employment purposes. Your voting rights, the Help America Vote Act. Housing and access to public housing. Fair Lending Act is also covered by that. Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act.
Why are you here? Where's our point?
My office, the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Tennessee, is known largely for its work in the prosecution of criminal cases. But the truth is, by the time we are prosecuting someone, it is usually too late. The individual being prosecuted has already broken the law, and the victim has already suffered the consequences. Sadly, this is the reality of our hate crimes work. Almost 10 years after 9/11, more than 12 years, excuse me, more than 50 prosecutions later, and a lot of long prison sentences, far too many people are still repeating the same vicious acts against members of the Arab, Muslim, Sikh,
He got mad people in the street.
How about 3,000 have died in New York City?
One example, sir.
what would cause a man to attempt to burn a place of worship? I think it's instructive that we I think it's instructive that we remember what the First Amendment says. Let me be clear. In this country, hateful speech is allowed. It is protected by the freedom of speech part of the First Amendment. But if someone makes threats of violence, that is not protected speech. And they will be prosecuted. Likewise, if someone commits acts of violence under the guise of religion or other speech, they will be prosecuted for their violent acts. We are fully committed to prosecuting federal hate crimes. Threats and acts of violence committed against Arabs, Muslims, Sikhs, and South Asians, and all who face the horror of hate violence. But those prosecutions are not enough.
Who's going to prosecute you?
These prosecutions are not changing hearts and minds. Already in the fiscal year of 2012, we in the Justice Department convicted more defendants on federal hate crimes charges than we did in 2011. In 2011, we prosecuted more, convicted more than we did in 2010. You need not like the color of a person's skin, agree with their sexual orientation, enjoy their various cultural traits, or appreciate their living with a disability. However, under the law, we must respect their civil rights. Under the law, people may not be threatened or subjected to violence because of these traits. And we will continue to work night and day to keep our communities safe. Safe from terrorists and safe from those who would commit hate. In the Justice Department, we sadly see acts of hate and discrimination against Arab and Muslim communities in all parts of our world. We use all of the laws that Congress has given us to right those wrongs, both civilly and criminally. We are also seeing that
Still in jail.
we are also seeing the harm that the bigotry causes young people in schools from bullying and harassment. We know that many Arab and Muslim children face unacceptable taunting,
They don't us.
bullying, and even violence because of who they are
They don't us.
and what they look like and where their parents came from or the way they worship God.
They don't us.
We are bringing civil cases throughout the country to make sure that children can attend safe schools and to identify bullies and try to correct their misbehavior. As Tom Perez, the head of the Justice Department Civil Rights Division, has warned, without ensuring safe schools, today's bullies are tomorrow's civil rights defenders. Don't forget the language of the 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of the citizens of the United States. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the law. That is exactly what the 14th Amendment says in Section 1. It is going to require more work in all of our areas to get us closer to eliminating discrimination against Arabs in our country. We have to fight discrimination in our schools, in our workplaces, and in our communities. And we, and this includes you, must fight discrimination not just against Arabs and Muslims and Sikhs, but also with respect to all races, all religions, all nationalities, all ethnicities, and stand with our brothers and sisters with disabilities, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity. Not only are we all God's people, we are all American people. There is no form of hate that should be acceptable in this great country. When it comes to keeping the country safe, some continue to falsely believe that we can lump entire groups of people together based solely on their race or color or religion. Not only is this thinking wrong, but it is dangerous. As the Attorney General said, our focus must be on individuals as opposed to communities. We need not be focused on what drives individuals to do certain things. We don't want to stigmatize. We don't want to alienate all communities, entire communities. We need to focus on individuals and groups of individuals who might band together and who would try to harm American interests or American citizens. That is what this Justice Department is doing. It's indeed necessary to protect us as a nation. Let's keep working toward the goal, and as the Attorney General further said, raises with an outstretched hand. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Good evening. Attorney General Eric Holder. That's not a part of my speech tonight, but I thought I'd just go ahead and get that out of the way. Inviting me to speak tonight, specifically to talk about the FBI's investigative priorities, which also include the dual roles of protecting this country against acts of terrorism, while also ensuring everyone's basic civil rights are protected. The FBI's investigative priorities are organized around three primary national security threats: terrorism, espionage, foreign counterintelligence, and cyber and high-tech crimes. And five major criminal threats: public corruption, civil rights, organized crime, white-collar crime, and also violent crime. As I am sure all of you are aware, our presence here tonight has generated some controversy. And while that did not deter me from coming tonight, I believe it is best to address it openly. Some of you who are here tonight believe that our presence here was simply to step on and stifle your First Amendment right. I guess if it's posted on the internet, it must be true. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, the first principle of the FBI's core values is rigorous obedience to the Constitution of the United States. Every single agent assigned to my division and in the FBI has pledged an oath to the Constitution. Upholding the Constitution and the rule of law is always more important than the outcome of any interview, search for evidence, or investigation. How we accomplish our mission is just as important as whether we accomplish it. My reason for being here tonight is simple. My reason is to continue to build relationships that I'm convinced are beneficial to us all. Relationships that will help us to protect our country and keep our streets safe. I am here because we must all be in this together, and because I believe a sound and trusting relationship with the Muslim community and other communities of faith are very important in helping us to keep this nation safe. Counterterrorism. Combating terrorism is the FBI's #1 priority. Extremists, whether domestically or internationally inspired, are still determined to use force or violence to advance their political, religious, racial, or social views, continue to pose a threat to the national security of our country and our economy. Internationally, Al-Qaeda and its supporters and sympathizers represent the primary terrorism threat to this nation. Domestic extremism threats include violent white supremacists, anarchists, militia groups, and sovereign citizens, animal rights, and environmental extremists as well. When terrorists do attack our country, the FBI works quickly with our partners to identify, locate, and apprehend the terrorist subjects and associates, tapping into our vast network of resources which includes the communities that we serve.
Our tax dollars.
This includes working with all members of the community to quickly identify and bring to justice the person or persons responsible. This strategy has been very successful for us and is a model we will continue to use. That is to incorporate community involvement with our investigations, including the faith communities throughout our communities. This is important because we realize that we cannot do it alone. Like some of you, many in the American Muslim community have come forward to support the FBI in very visible ways. Muslim Americans have cooperated with our interviews and supported our investigations. One of the greatest acts of support that we have received from the Muslim community since the tragic events of 9/11 is their response to our urgent need for translators. I know there are probably I realize that most of you in here speak English, but the reality is our enemies don't necessarily speak English, and we have to have individuals who can understand and interpret their language as well as we battle acts of terrorism. Since 9/11, as a result of their response to our need, we have more than doubled the number of translators that we have for the Arab languages. They have supported our FBI offices throughout the United States and across the world. As it relates to civil rights, the FBI, remember that dual role that I mentioned, is the primary federal agency responsible for investigating allegations of civil rights violations. As Mr. Killian has mentioned, these laws are designed to protect the civil rights of all persons within the United States territory, all persons regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, etc., all persons. And our hate crime statistics gather that documentation across all areas. Like all Americans, Muslim Americans were deeply impacted by the events of September 11th. The most recent hate crime statistics compiled for 2011, as previously shown by Mr. Killian, continue to indicate that incidents motivated by race accounted for approximately 47% of all reported incidents, while incidents motivated by religious bias accounted for almost 20% of the total number of hate crimes reported for 2011. In closing, we must all speak out against terrorism and civil rights violations. America, this country that we all love, and many of us have sworn to protect, has always been a land of diversity, a nation rich in ethnic and cultural chemistry. But what has always seen us through our difficult times is our unity as Americans. Not our religion, not our race, not our gender, but our citizenship as Americans. All through history, Americans have found a way to put aside their differences and to step forward with courage in times of need. We need to pull together as a nation. We in the FBI need each one of you to help us in that area. We rely upon you as we conduct our investigations to protect this country, regardless of your religion, sexual orientation, race, gender, etc. Again, I want to thank you, AMAC, for inviting me to participate in tonight's program. I look forward to working with you and the other members of this community in the future, and I look forward to answering any questions that you may have during the question and answer session as well. Again, thank you all very much for coming.
Straight up.
to get us confused. Just a short introduction about myself before I do the presentation on understanding.
Hear that comment because that's exactly what this question is relating to. The question is, and I'm not sure who sent the question in, but the question is to the United States Attorney and the FBI agents, is not your action here tonight intended to intimidate and injure my constitutional right of free speech? Your oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution is being, I think restricted, but I can't make that out. To respond to that question, I would say absolutely not. For example, if you look, there were protests outside before this event started. There will probably be protests after the event ends. That's part of the First Amendment. You have that right, you exercise that right. As it relates to free speech, not a single person in here has been ushered out, regardless of all of the interruptions, the blurting out of questions and comments. No one has been penalized as a result of that because First Amendment. If you take a look at the First Amendment in its entirety, not one individual here tonight will be arrested, charged, investigated as a result of that. And so, to answer your question, we are not here to intimidate anyone. I am here again to hopefully gain your support in terms of investigations and acts of civil rights violation. That's why we're here. It's just that simple. So thank you for the question, whoever asked the question.
Washington do that? Are
And
you
so thank you
returning our
again.
license plates to the IRS and have them pick us out for next year?
I'm not even running license plates, and we didn't have a roster when you walked in, and you won't have one when you leave. Thank you very much.
The federal statute, I was, by the way, my not immediate predecessor, but my predecessor, one of them, is Andrew Jackson, who was the first U.S. attorney in Tennessee. One authority on here, federal statute created the U.S. attorneys, obviously a long time ago. And I was unanimously approved by the Senate and appointed by the President of the United States.
Okay, one of the questions was, why does Islam demand freedom of religion and speech in America, but don't do it in Muslim countries?
Amen.
Okay, at the beginning, like I was telling you, I grew up in Pakistan. I grew up within less than 100 miles of Afghanistan border. That's the Taliban stronghold that I see on TV. I want to tell you, I went to a Catholic school there for 10 years. So if you are thinking there are no Christians there, you can accept this is how reality is. I went to a Catholic school with the Taliban. So what is there happening today is happening. Recognize that those people didn't suddenly remember to become Muslims in the last 30 years. We were Muslims then there, we are here. What has happened is it has become a political ideology as far as Islam has been there for 1400 years. I went to a Catholic school in the middle of Taliban land. So if you cannot accept this kind of a reconciliation, it's like saying, I am afraid of heights. Let me please, Mr. Lawmaker, outlaw gravity. I am afraid of heights. I'll outlaw gravity. That's the kind of thing. So I went to a Catholic school. So to say there are no Christians, there are Christian missionaries. These cities have names with Christians. I went to a school called St. Francis Grammar School. And my sister went to a school called St. Joseph's Convent School. That's near Afghanistan and Pakistan today.